All right, give me a second, everyone. Let me get the link. Give it a sec, everybody. Give it a sec. If you're tuned in right now, hold on. Yeah, I'm gonna give it another minute. We've been live for about a minute now. I'm gonna give it another minute to let everybody in. I usually take engagement from the VandySports.com website. I have a thread open. That's where you usually engage with, but I'll start taking stuff from the chat because that was just such a ridiculous way to end that game. Yeah, Rusty. I mean, you couldn't like they were giving us that win. You couldn't ask for more of a give me. That was this team's chance to win an SEC game this season. Snap the streak against South Carolina. I mean, that was everything, and to throw it away like that, man, it's heartbreaking. Absolutely heartbreaking. B squad 4. I hate this team so much. You know what, man? It's hard to love them. We're at 2 minutes right now live. At about 2 minute 30, I'll start the actual show. I'm letting everybody just get in here so we can all talk through it together. This is a Vandy support group right here. If you guys haven't known, Chris is out for the day. He's his son's or his nephew is currently playing at Wyoming. His nephew earned a scholarship to play at Wyoming, so he's there to watch. So the show's just me today. Um, couldn't have been a worse day to let me have the reins by myself, but I won't swear or be crazy or anything. What a heartbreaker. All right. Yeah, we're at 2:30 now live. Everyone's zooming in. What up, Zach? Yeah, Zach, I don't know what you were talking about. You said Vandy can't lose this after the field goal. There was six points, and South Carolina had a few minutes to drive. They had a minute 40 to drive. Definitely had a chance to win there. So let's start from the beginning, I guess, or let's take an overview of the game. I mean, South Carolina just was absolutely shooting himself in the foot. They were outgaining us. Mike Wright had a few great plays to show, had a few bombs, but our third down conversions were really bad. I mean, we had a lot of three and outs just because we were what this team has struggled with is staying in front of the chains, right? We will usually be like first and 15 or second and 15, second and 20 because we give up a bad player a sack. This game we were really good on first and second down, and then we would get to third and second, third and 5, third and 6, like pretty manageable third downs. And we were just run the most moronic plays I've ever seen in my life. I mean, those options were terrible. And typically when you go into halftime, we ran, I think, two or three options right off the bat. Thank you for the side. But we ran two to three options right off the top in the first half, and they were abysmal on third down. So the fact that we went to halftime, came back, and we were like, we're just gonna, do it again was pretty mind blowing. But from an offensive standpoint, it was enough to win, but it still wasn't an amazing game offensively. I mean, we had 100 yards rushing, 14 first downs. Our first down efficiency was really bad, 5 of 14. We missed on that fourth down. That was huge. Not scoring on that field goal in the last drive was huge. Giving up that big play when Rocco got blown up the backfield. That can't happen. Um, it looked like it was going to be a same old Vandy game at first. I mean, South Carolina was scoring up and early. They were just they ran a seam route down the field to house it. I mean, it looked like same old Vandy, but props to these guys. They came back and fought. I knew this was going to be a game Vanderbilt had to play 4 quarters to win. I mean, there was going to be no give from South Carolina. They were down like at what was it, 40 to Tennessee that one week, and they were trying to chip back and come back to win. So We got beat by a bunch of chickens. Yeah, Ryan Seymour, I saw your tweet. You said we them boys, and now we are not them boys. I don't think you even won against South Carolina, Ryan. I think both of your teams were some of the best teams we had, and we just could never get over that South Carolina hump, man. Donald Reed says this loss is on Clark Lee. Got super conservative in the red zone and the defense on the final drive. That was the most passive thing I've ever seen. Yeah, I don't no, because I suck. Me too, Ryan. Me too. Donald, man, that's just a normal defensive thing, and I can't stand it personally either. The rush three and play eight in zone. I mean, our guys' feet were in cement. I want to. I haven't been able to watch practice. I don't think we can even go watch practice right now. Not that I could report on it or anything, but just see how the 2 minutes go. I wonder if our offense is chopping up our defense that much in 2 minutes because that was awful. That was so bad. I mean, credit to that guy who came in, that grad assistant that's dressed to play. He was his first ball to convert was, I mean, just a perfect pass. Then going out in the back of the end zone. Wow, what a heartbreaker, man. Alan Richardson, South Carolina was Robin Seymour play. Connor Shaw was that guy, QB and Clowney on defense. Yeah, South Carolina was a top SEC team that back then. That was a good point. They were bad when I played them every single time, and we managed to throw the game away. Rusty, like you said, there's three and outs early in the fourth quarter were killer. I mean, when your defense plays like this, oh, when have we seen Vanderbilt's defense, come up with turnover after turnover after turnover, stop after stop after stop? Like the offense has to convert, and I think the guys were playing well and hard enough to win and executing enough. I don't want to. I hate using the play calling excuse. And ever since that, story came out where everyone internally is upset with the play calling, this is like fireable now. That was abysmal. That was just terrible. I think one of the options Mike like misread it, but it's an option. It's like a mid level mess up play. Like you're not going to read it right every time. Those are tough. Let's see if we have any posts on the Vandy Sports ones. Those are the ones I got to hit. I'm sure they're rolling in right now. Great offense, defense, and special teams. If I had to grade the offense, it was a C. I mean, Mike Wright came in and he was the big play guy, but you know, it's not enough just to score off of like two or three solid drives. You have to be consistent. You have to help your defense out. You have to at least take time off the clock. Did the offense do enough to win? Obviously not. We lost. Yeah, it's a C performance. It wasn't as bad as we usually saw, and we'll get into the Mike Wright Ken conversation here in a sec. But I just want to make sure I hit on the engagement, all the questions I got, off the top. I'm sure there's some on Twitter too of people rolling in. Um, yeah, special teams was an A. I mean, when our punter and kicker are on, Boulevardis, I think is how you pronounce his name, and Smith at punter. When these guys are on, they're on. That punt, the one was huge. He had a rolling punt earlier that was really effective for us. Our offense kept going 3 and out, and we were able to flip the field, which was that shouldn't happen, but we were making it happen because our special teams were pretty good. Cam almost made a extremely costly mistake by touching that ball that went over his head. We were lucky there. I mean, this game was Vanderbilt's. The luck was there, 100%. This was a give me to Vanderbilt, and to throw it away like that it's something like I'm not even too beat up about because it's just something we get used to and we're dead to and we see it all the time. So I'll give special teams the A, but that's the thing. Special teams is a lot of the times the deciding factor. It's not special teams is not going to win you the game outright. If offense and defense, or maybe you're good on offense, you have a great offensive day and a bad defensive day. Maybe special teams is the difference maker, or maybe when you're dead even on everything, special team going to be the difference. That's not going to win the game alone. So props to those special teams guys for showing up, but I mean, it just wasn't enough. Defense, you got to give a defense the B, everything considered. I mean, the pass rush, listen, we weren't killing it on sacks, but I've been saying for a while, we don't need to get sack on sack on sack. What we need to do is move the quarterback off the spot. That's what's going to start creating sacks and misplays. That's what was creating those bad throws. It's because the quarterback can't keep his eyes downfield. He has to step up or step to the left or right. That's huge enough in and of itself besides getting a sack. We missed a terrible sack in the red zone that was, you know, a high schooler could have made that tackle. So it's one of those things where it's like you got to remember we're Vanderbilt, but I think they got after the quarterback a lot better today and forced a lot of mistakes. Defense, yeah, defense with their turnovers. Listen, it wasn't perfect, especially at the end there, but I put the end more on coaching than anything. Rushing the three was so terrible. I don't even. It's hard for me to stay, locked in on the show, guys, because how much I care about Vanderbilt, and the fact I don't have Chris here kind of puts me unhinged. But that that prevent defense we ran wasn't prevent. That was here have the game defense. That was here you go defense. I mean, every single guy was zoned too. Like, why not put a man on man and then leave the rest on a zone and maybe two over the middle or two on the underneath. But instead, you play eight guys in the zone, and when the defense or when the offenders run past them, they just sit. They just sit with cement. They don't even go underneath. That was terrible. The three down pass rush didn't even get remotely close. I think they were leaving six in protection too sometimes. When there was a one-on-one, like typically even on a prevent defense, there's a one-on-one somewhere on the line. And our defensive end was just, putting his head down and trying to run down the middle of a 6'6", 330-pound tackle. That's not going to happen. You have to move and you got to get the quarterback off the spot. And that was the thing that sealed the deal for Vanderbilt at the end there. Um, South Carolina was abysmal penalty wise too. Vanderbilt is something I said earlier was really early in the season was if you can control one thing, control the penalties. Because we're not going to beat people off talent. We're not going to beat people off um, just straight up. We're going to have games like this where we have three penalties for 15 yards and South Carolina has 10 for 90. I think the guys have been, improving in that regard, but it's hard to be optimistic after a loss like this. I mean, it's still two. Vanderbilt had two turnovers, right? I know one at the end there was a whatever kind of thing, but it can't happen. If you're going to win these SEC games, you got to have zero turnovers and you got to force turnovers. That's the reason the game was so close in the first place. Turnover margin, turnover margin, turnover margin. Let's go to the VandySports post game show thread again. Yeah, here's where everybody's starting to roll in now. All right. Everyone's really emotional right now, so we have some ones I obviously can't read. Why would we switch to three? C more 83 says, why would we switch to three-man pressure with the game on the line after not doing so all game? Well, it's a defensive norm to do that at all levels. And it's also an offensive norm to just absolutely carve it up because the underneath is taken, right? I mean, there's no when you don't have a man on man kind of deal, the guys are going to get lost in the zone. So there's a three-man pass rush, and our pass rush is already bad. When we have 4, 5, 6-man pass rushes, it's not good already. So we're not moving the quarterback off the spot. When you leave a three-man pass rush and you get no pressure, like at all, which is not going to happen with us. The quarterback's going to have all day to wait in the zone. If you look back on those plays at the very end of the game, the guys are wide open jogging, like just they pick the spots in the zone. I think they run the route maybe for 3 steps and then they're like, "Hey, there's literally 15 yards of free grass right here. I'm just going to sit here until homeboy throws it to me." And that's all that was happening. I don't mind them calling it at first, but when they just got 2 to 3 um like first downs right off the bat, you have to call a timeout and change something. I think I think it was just it was just throwing away the game. What a heartbreaking way to lose. Uh we have a lot of emotional type posts that I can't even talk about here. Have you ever seen a more poorly called final drive defensively? Well, it was poorly called and it was poorly executed. I mean, listen, football players, those are the guys out there making the plays. If there's 8 defenders out there and you can't tackle someone in the open field, coming down, that's also on you too. Um, it looked like sometimes we would be jogging, like expecting someone else to make the play. I think that is the biggest thing holding this team back is a lot of times guys will look to their right and look to their left and they're hoping someone else makes the play, and that's not going to happen. You have to give all out effort the whole game, no matter what. I mean, that's what was happening on a lot of our edge runs. Everyone's like, we need to run up the edge. We can't run up the middle. We can't run up the middle. Well, our edge blocking, they block for about 2 seconds and they're like, all right, I'm done. It just cannot happen. How does Clark Lee survive this epic failure? Well, I mean, How many of you guys expected to win the game anyways? I did. I expected to win the game before coming in. I thought about throwing $100 on it. Thank God I didn't. But um, it's one of those things where we know this is a rebuild year, guys, quote unquote rebuild. I'll get to the Ken Seals and Mike Wright conversation here in about 5 minutes or so. But this is something, when we lost to ETSU, would you expect to be competitive with any SEC teams this year? No. So is it a nice surprise? Yeah. But these guys, no excuses. They got to win that game. The coaching staff knows it. The players know it. And Clarkley's going to have to make some hard decisions coming up because it is unacceptable when to get that close and throw it away. It's one thing to lose outright, but to throw wins away cannot happen. George This says, was there really that big of an advantage kicking to go up by 6? Why not make some attempts towards the TD? That's a great point, George. I was thinking that the same thing too. Once you get into that red zone, maybe open up the offense again because they were conservative, they were running it. But the thing was, Vanderbilt was they were successful running it because SC was playing, they were playing their own version of a prevent. They didn't want any big plays knocking. They just wanted to collect the 3-yard runs and then time them out. When they got to the red zone, I thought, what's 20, 30 seconds each going to do? They should probably go for the touchdown. But you could also make the argument that we were already so bad in the red zone. Why even risk it and just go? I don't necessarily have a problem with what Clarkley called there. Take the field goal, go up by 6, and then you force them to score when they have to switch a quarterback out. I think I don't think that was necessarily that big of a deal. It's more of a hindsight thing. We think in hindsight, well, we should have just gone for it. And it's a good point too, because if we go for it, where does South Carolina start the ball with? The 10-yard line? You know, um, I agree. I think I'm an offensive minded guy and I was an O lineman, so I want to go to score. I don't like playing this. Let's just run it 3 times up the middle, like quite literally throwaway play calls. I want to go for the win. And this is what happens when you play conservative and you're the underdog. When you're the underdog, you got to take the underdog risk, man. You got to do it. You can't just say, "Oh, we're just going to go to act like we're up by 14 or something." It's not what you can do. I think we're about to finally get into the big question now. Because I think the surprise was coming into the game, Ken Seals was out. He was injured, finger injury. And for the foreseeable future, I don't know if he comes back. Does he instantly get the starting spot back? Listen, Ken Seals was in practice. I can see why he is the starter. Okay, because Mike, and it's not even really a Ken thing. Ken does things right in practice. He doesn't. He operates the 2 minute well. He operates the offense well. He doesn't take unnecessary risks. And coaches like that, and I like that too. You can't throw away the game. I think Mike a lot of the time in practice was forcing things, forcing throws, and you saw shades of it where he was throwing in second and double and triple coverages at the end of games when he was getting his time. But he was just trying to make a play, and I get it. Mike would also, trust his feet a lot more in the pass and, take his eyes downfield. He wouldn't operate as well. But Mike Wright is two things. First of all, the guy's a leader. The guy's a straight up leader. He has that charisma about him that guys will pick up his energy. His energy is contagious, man. It is contagious. That team looked defeated after the first 2 drives, and Mike is out there still, giving effort, giving energy, and then the team follows that energy. Absolutely massive. And that's something, I get it. As a quarterback, you don't need to be a cheerleader, but it matters to this team. This team is different. This team needs somebody that's going to just give that it factor, that's that guy who is going to fight to win no matter what. And I think the guys picked up that energy, and that's something that really doesn't happen with Ken. Mike Wright. So on one, he's a leader. Two, he's a gamer. He doesn't practice that well, at least the times I saw him. But the dude gets out there and he is balls. All right. Did he have some mistakes today? Yeah, he had some misreads. Yeah, he had some opportunities to throw the ball down the field, and he didn't. Yeah, but I think Mike Wright did enough to win this game. And I think Mike Wright, there's a real conversation they need to have about who's going to be the quarterback going forward. I was writing and saying, if we change quarterbacks arbitrarily in the middle of the season, we throw away all the progress we already had. But those facts are the facts. You look at Ken's stats. Ken, a lot of people say there's the sophomore slump, but in this type of program, you can't have that. Ken has to be the leader. Ken came off a freshman setting a record setting freshman year, right? So it's hard to want to go away from that. But when who gives your team the best chance to win right now? I think that's the question you have to ask yourself. I think it's Mike Wright. I think Mike Wright gives this team the best chance to win. I've been saying that this team is going to sneak up on an SEC team. This was their opportunity. Being forward, Missouri is another opportunity. I don't see how we're going to beat the Tennessee or the Mississippi State. Is this team last year took Texas A&M to the wire, so it can happen. But this team needed this win so bad. Is this game as close with Ken at quarterback? Honestly, I don't think so. I think Mike brought the energy it took to come back from the deficit they were facing, take the lead. I just think these guys don't have experience winning football games. That's another thing that's so tough. These guys don't know what it's like to win an SEC football game. They just don't know. They don't know what it takes, and they don't know, how to finish. They just and that's not saying they're bad players. They just haven't been in those situations yet to know what it takes. So I hope they take this loss, use it as fuel, and find the ways to get it. And coaching too. Clark Lee is a first year head coach and a defensive guy. Basically, he's Derek Mason. He's we rehired Derek Mason, and he's looking for his third win. Coach Mason didn't get SEC win his first year, and eventually they did build. So I think we do have to give Clark that time, and frankly, we also have no other choice. Um, NBA Door says, "What is your beverage of choice to deal with Vanderbilt football?" I'm gonna go with my dad. Let's just go straight Jamison tonight, boys. We'll just do that, okay? Uh, 5-star Door. Would the players be supportive of having such conservative offensive play calling on the drive that ended with a field goal? Once they entered the red zone, they decided to run up the middle 3 straight times. Yeah, they're going to have an issue with that. When I played, I was the center. And when I played, I hardly ever questioned the play calls because what am I going to do? What is that going to help? It's not going to help anything. But if I was putting myself in the shoes of this team and I was seeing these play calls, I would think like, what are we doing, man? It seems obvious. And a few of those guys were on some of the teams that won some SEC games, and they saw the adjustments we had to make at halftime. I'm not in those locker rooms. I don't talk to the players and ask them this or that. That's not what I'm about. But I can see on the field the adjustments they're making, and they're not. They're not there. I think it's as much as Clark is a new head coach, we have also incompetency in other coaching areas, and it just is what it is. Um, MW says biggest concern to me now is how do you keep the morale of this team from going down the toilet, because that's got to be the most demoralizing loss this group of guys has ever had to face. Listen, it's true, but I think it's really not. That night, that ETSU night, that was that was the hardest. If these guys can come back from that ETSU night and play competitive football, they'll do it again. If anything, I hope these guys take this and use it as fuel. Like, we can win a dang SEC game. This team's not going bowling. We know that. If they do, Clark Lee coach of the year, right? But they're not going to go bowling. But they can. They don't have that expectation on their back. So why not just leave it out on the line? I mean, a few of these guys got stuff to play for, man. Some of these guys, it's their last year. Chris Pierce, he's an NFL level player. He's trying to put film on tape. These guys got stuff. Mike Wright and Ken Seals, they're in an open quarterback competition right now, 100%. A lot of these guys got stuff to play for their futures. All right, so I think you're gonna see this team come back and still be competitive. They needed this win so bad, but you didn't get it. So what are you going to do? This is this is that time, man. This is that time for these young men. They're all 20, they're all 19 years old through 23 years old, and this is the first adult lesson you're going to get. Life ain't nice, life ain't fair, life ain't easy. You're not always going to get what you want. Um so what are you going to do? Are you going to play sad and quit the rest of the season? Or are you going to man up? And are you going to, and sorry for the toxic masculinity crowd, but are you going to man up? Are you going to go out there? Or are you going to go try and win some more football games? Because there's a lot of football left to be played this season. There's a lot more upsets left to be played. And now there's the expectation. We, as the fans, know you can win these games. You can win these games, man. So all it takes is one win to start building for these guys. That's what happened with Coach Mason and us. Listen, I was a true freshman on that 3-9 Coach Mason team, and it was the most abysmal thing. After the Temple game, after the UMass game, after the ODU game, just so many terrible games. But the second next year we got that one Missouri win, that one Kentucky win, we were like, we can do this. We can be a bowl level football team. Did we ever make that next jump? No. Sadly, that's something we got to live with. But these guys can start making these jumps. They just need one. Their goal the rest of the season is to find their one. Find their one win. I wish so bad it was South Carolina. There's no reason these guys should have a 13-year win streak over us. No reason, especially after that. We'll get them next year, though, man. We'll get them next year. How impressed were you with the O-line blocking? Listen, there's a big issue with the O-line right now, and that is you don't have to play over the top as an O lineman. What does that mean? You don't have to be a road grading, just pancake machine every single play. You need to do your job every play. You need to not give up sacks every play. You need to snap the ball correctly. No critical errors, no missed assignments. Two things that are going to kill the game. Offensive line is tough, man. You're playing 60 snaps and you're expected to do well on every single one. Running backs play what, 20 snaps? And if you have a bad three, no one blinks an eye. If you're a defensive lineman and you get destroyed all game, but you get two sacks out of 40 snaps you play, you're considered to have a good game. As an O lineman, if you have 5 critical errors, it is 5 way too many. So that's something this O line's got to figure out. I think a lot of the times this O line will take turns, playing a peekaboo like mess up. They'll be like, oh, it's my turn to mess up. Oh, it's my turn to mess up. And these guys, they only have 2 to 3 errors a game, but that adds up to 15 errors total on the offensive line and negative yardage. And they're playing better than I expected. I think they're rotating a lot. I saw some different names out there that I just don't have off the top of my head for this post game show. But you know, who who cares? We're not going to feel sorry for you. That's the thing. This is a great formative experience for these guys to, you know, this could be the hardest thing you ever do in your adult life is be held accountable for these football games when you're 20 years old. Um, at the end of the day, it's just a game. So get over it and keep working, keep building. I think the O line has potential to be a decent O line. I think we got some solid players. Cole Clemens, Tyler Steen, Hernandez, Ashmore. These guys can be solid players. They just got to put it together, man. And I think they're getting better for whatever that's worth. I think they are getting better, but that's not saying much considering we started at rock bottom. Let's see. I'm going to answer a few of the YouTube ones too. MW says Mike Wright def played well enough to win. I'd like to see him start the next game. I like to see Mike start start going forward too. Let Ken heal up. Maybe next year we have another quarterback competition, but I don't see these. I think they need to pick one of these guys and stick with them. And Mike might have earned it tonight. Yep, suck it up and move forward. I agree. I think that has to be the message to these guys. No one's going to care how they feel. No one's going to, that's what moms and dads and families and your teammates are for. That's what your teammates are for. They're the ones that pick you up when you start feeling bad. But, it's a job. Being a college football player in the SEC is kind of like being a pro. You're expected to win and you have to find ways to do it. And if you don't do it, you have to answer for those losses. Big growing experience for these guys. Bruno, I know y'all will get into it more, but how does the defensive scheme of blitzing and varying look work with the game? Then that last drive, we go 3 rush and drop 8 zone against the new QB. Yeah, I mean, well, think of it this way. What if they were spread the whole time, 6-man protection, South Carolina did, and we blitzed and they carved us up while we were blitzing? What would the discourse be? It would be how could we rush 6 people on a prevent situation? Why would we not drop 8 back? And so if we lost by blitzing, I think everybody would, probably be more vitriolic in the response. I think dropping 8 is the answer. I just think our guys they've never been in that situation, prevent situation to win the game. So they just got absolutely carved up. Their vision was terrible. You go from a zone to a man eventually. You can't just sit flat footed in your zones and be like, well, this is going to work because we have a 3-man rush. Quarterback's going to be there all night. They're going to run right by you. They're going to run right beside you, So I think these guys just had no experience in this situation. You can practice all you want. They had no game experience for the situation they were in, and it cost them. It cost them with a very deflating loss. Nashville native 615 says VU attempted one pass between the hashes, 18-yard gain, and once the defense adjusted and contained the edges, Wright had no answers. Who do you try out next week? Seals or Wright? I think Nash native. I think we have to put Wright out. I think Wright gives us the best chance to win. My message to Wright would be: don't think you have to do too much. You know, do your job, do your assignment, and play within the bounds of the offense, because that's what the rest of the offense is expecting you to do. I love Right Mike, and I love his effort. I mean, this guy, I would love to play for this guy, but he just has to trust his team that they'll do their jobs. And that's I think that's a better strategy for longevity of the production of this offense. DC Commodore says zero reason to support this team until they get a real coach. Hey, it's tough doing these shows. It's tough going to Vanderbilt Stadium and covering it. I get it. And I'm someone who's so invested in this program, man. Look at my shirt. Come on. Like, I love this program to death, and it sucks watching us lose. And when we do have the chance to win, it sucks throwing it away. It sucks taking 4 turnovers off South Carolina, them giving us the game in every way imaginable and losing. But, you know, that's why we're Vanderbilt fans. And what is fandom without, the highs and the lows? I think one of these days Vanderbilt will take that next step as a program and get back to the days of the Ryan Seymours, where we're 8, 9, 10 wins, and we can look back on these days and be like, we were here through the whole evolution of the program. Coach Mason came in and he was clueless. I was clueless. So in that way, we bonded through our cluelessness and figured it out. Did it end right? No. Coach Mason, and Coach Mason answered for how it ended with his job, and I answered for how it ended in my career with losing our bowl game. That's life, and that's adulthood. Um, I do think Vanderbilt is a place where you can win. I think Clark Lee can lead this place to where it needs to be with a win. And I hate being so assertive. I hate calling for people's jobs, but a lot of things have to change offensively. A lot of people have told me in private how great of a coach the O-line coach is. That's great. If he's got that reputation and the guys love him, you got to keep the dudes the guys love. But if there are people that the guys don't believe in that program, they won't play. They just won't play as hard. They just can't. It's not in their hearts. Um, Ryan Seymour, we them boys. You are them boys, man. I was jealous of your team's successes. Ask Coach Clarkley if he can recommend a competent replacement, so we know who not to who not to go after, because this dude is clueless. Um, yeah, the changes have to be made. Listen, Vanderbilt is an SEC job. There are going to be people chomping at the bit to take this job. He might have to go for someone who is not. Here's what coaches love to do. Coaches love doing this: hiring their buddies, because their buddies are people that will listen to them, and their buddies are people they trust. But when Coach Mason hired Andy Ludwig, I don't think they were buddies. I don't even know. I think Ludwig just got fired from Wisconsin, which is a strange thing. Or maybe Mason had more money, but Mason saw deep down what Ludwig could be. And even though I don't believe they had a prior relationship, he brought Ludwig in. They gotta find that guy who has just had success every single place, because it's like the Tom Brady thing. What's the common factor of every team Tom Brady's on that they're successful? Tom Brady's on it. That's why. Everywhere Ludwig was successful, or everywhere Ludwig was offensively successful. Then he comes to Vanderbilt, and we get offensively better in every statistical category every single year. How hard is it to find a guy with a great track record of leading offenses and hiring him? That's just something that has to happen next. Zach Williams. On a real note, calling for Lee's job is crazy, way too early, but that last drive defense does, or help the situation. Yeah, I mean, you can't call for Clark Lee's job. I think it is what it is. I think the team has started this season at rock bottom, and they're trying to build up from that rock bottom. Uh, what's your name? Mr. Drumming says, I so look forward to Vandy shutting up all these critics saying they need to leave the SEC. Yeah, that's ridiculous. Vandy's a charter member of the SEC, and we can compete. There's a lot more, heck, Missouri, South Carolina, those are teams that should be kicked out before Vanderbilt is. At least Vanderbilt wins championships in other sports. Also, the SEC needs their grades. Not my grades. I didn't have good grades, but SEC needs some of those guys' grades. Let's see. We're almost through our engagement thread, and then we'll probably call it. If you have any questions on the YouTube stream, ask ahead because I have all day. So let's see. Was the coaching today worse than Mason's year one? Honestly, I don't think so. I think Mason's year one was worse. So NBA door, that's your answer to that. I think Mason's year one was abysmally worse. Somehow this is better. Almost done with the thread. Do you think Yeah, we're getting a lot of questions that are. Do you think Mason's first season's coaching was better than this? No, I think Clark is better. Somehow, I think it is better. Um, without too much detail, I mean, our offense was absurdly abysmal back then. So at least here, it's serviceable enough to win. Brian Reeves on Twitter asks, can you tell me why only rush three? I understand from the 50, but once in plus territory, especially when you timeouts inside the 50, you have to bring more pressure. I agree. I think in hindsight, it looks good, but it is what it is. Jeff Stokes 4 on Twitter at Bruno Reagan. Meet you at the bar. That's a good tweet, man. Appreciate it. Let's see. Alex Fail says this guy's an absolute idiot. Tired of hearing about how he has to plan to rebuild the program when he can't coach out of his way out of a paper bag. That's I get from a player standpoint that piling all on Clark Lee is is it calling for his job? The answer, no, not really. But I can see why when you're the head coach, that's your job is to take the responsibility. I think Clark will do that and move on. That's Clark Clark Lee is a He's a grown man making a lot of money, and he seems like he has a good head on his shoulders. So I think he'll move on. He just can't allow the critics to get to him. That's his job. He deserves the criticism. There was some questionable coaching things, like the entire offense the whole season. Um, let's see. Is that it? All right, guys. I'm going to answer these last questions from the YouTube chat, and then we'll call it a show. Let's see. Would you have called a timeout and changed the defensive play calls? That's a hard question. Probably not. Probably not. I honestly think what they ran was, the consensus norm in the football community. The guys just didn't know how to run it. They'd never been in that position. They probably don't practice it a ton, and you know, it proved to be costly. That would if because of Coach Lee I said this earlier. Coach Lee brought pressure in a prevent situation, and they were chopping us up anyways. We would be like, why are we not in a prevent defense? So I think the prevent eight back defense was right. I just think you know. I think the problem with the eight-man defensive back defense was there were three wide receivers somehow open every single time. I think that was the issue. Rusty, do we know how Ra came to be hired? Was there a previous relationship? I don't have the answer for you off the top, Russ. I don't that's something I could look into for you, but that's a good question because the fact that there was a the fact that there was a coaching change before fall camp or before the season even started with offensive play calling, that was, a precursor to how abysmal this was. And defense played good enough to win this game. It must be heartbreaking for them, but that's team sports and that's football. A women's b-ball ship and back-to-back baseball for Vandy 1-1. Who should be kicked out of the SEC? Check out cares compared to Vandy's. Skyrim Sports. No, you got a point. That's mainly Skyrim. That's mainly a call from emotion where I'm like, they should kick South Carolina out because of you're. I don't know South Carolina's championships. I'm just more of a ignore calling for South Carolina. First of all, we should kick Missouri out because I hate Missouri. But forget me saying kick South Carolina out. I just think Vandy should stay in. I think Vandy has a place in the Southeastern Conference and its history. Justin Holland, beverage of choice for watching Vanderbilt football. Oh yeah, you already asked that, and I'm just gonna drink straight Jamison until I die. Thoughts on using so little play action? Yeah, our play action is that's interesting. We need to incorporate a lot more play action because at the beginning of the game, I tweeted it out. South Carolina's linebackers were just the linebackers and the DBs were just stepping into the run, stepping into the run, stepping into the run. They weren't even taking a pop or second a pop or two, and usually that's why the run is successful. Is because you'll grind the run, you'll hit a play action, then the linebackers and DBs have to start the plays on their heels more, so that way you get a step or two in front of them. They were just running downfield, and props to South Carolina. They probably see how little play action we ran, and they were like, just go hit this running back in the mouth. Then we started popping big plays over the top, and it opened up the run game. But obviously, play action is it's a great scheme. Let's see what else. Mr. Drumming says the loss stings for sure, but destroying the point spread and coming within a hair of winning is progress, painful as it is. I agree. It's so painful coming this close, but it is progress. I hate being the moral victory guy. There are no victories in this. We lost the game, and it should be heartbreaking and it should hurt. But there is the analyst side of me that knows that it's better than at least what we expected going in. Justin Holland, do you prefer Gracie Barra or Gracie Academy of BJJ? I'm not a big Gracie Barra guy. I don't like the officialness of those, but I'll try and stay on topic here. Agree, Skyline Sports, several 90s outside of football. Big progress for Vandy, though. They'll come along. Yeah, I agree. South Carolina was a terrible example. I'm just thinking of you. I hate South Carolina. I hate how they have a 13 game streak. But first of all, props to this South Carolina grad assistant quarterback coming in. What a story. Of course, it happens against Vanderbilt too, but what a story. This guy is a GA and he puts the pads on and he wins them the game. Like, what an absolute story. That is absurd. Yeah, we're starting to get off topic now, guys. I think this is closing out thoughts. Props to South Carolina because after watching the South Carolina Tennessee game, I knew it was going to be an unlikely game to win for Vanderbilt because South Carolina has no quit in them. That's something you can credit these guys. They have a lot of issues as a football program right now. There are a lot of discipline issues with the football, but they find ways to stay in the game and they gave themselves the opportunity to win. Big win at home for them. Extremely tough loss on the road for Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's going to be the bottom ranked SEC team for a little longer, and it is what it is. Got to move forward. No one's going to feel sorry for us. People are obviously going to call to kick Vandy out. That's the brand we got. And you reap what you sow. So if we don't want that, time to win some football games. Guys, this is Bruno Reagan with the Vandy post-game show. Chris Lee was out. I hope his nephew in Wyoming are doing well. Chris will be back next week. We'll do the show together. Chris will probably get mad at my lighting and my setup, but my computer broke, so I'm on my laptop, and this is the best I could do. If that's it, I'm gonna go one more time. I want to make sure I hit everybody and everyone's questions because someone's got to answer for what we saw. So if I gotta do it, I gotta do it. Guys, I think this is it. One more from NBA Door. Let's see if this is a question I can even answer on air. All right. The beverage of choice thing is a total meme now. All right, guys. Thanks for joining the post game show. Props to South Carolina for an extremely, resilient win. Shout out to the Vanderbilt players for not quitting, but no moral victories. We got to get it done somehow. So, guys, this is Bruno Regan, VandySports. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see y'all next week.